Not only that, this is not some library that we have to travel to access this information. All of us here, I think every single one attending this meet has got a cell phone and it's all available there. So you would think that we got everything sorted and we all would be in the pink of health. Yeah. Well, let us see. So there's always a controversy as to whether our ancestors were healthy or not. Some people say they're healthy, not healthy, but let's not go into that. Let's just look at what is relevant to us last 30 years. If you just look at the last 30 years, if you look at these chronic lifestyle disorders, whether liver disease, hypertension, obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, polycystic ovarian disease, Alzheimer's, etc., you find there's been a staggering rise. And people will be shocked to see this WHO statistics that as a rule of thumb, all these lifestyle diseases have doubled over the last 30 years. Some have trebled. Like this trend is to continue in another 30 years, imagine what would happen. I mean, we'd be drowned. Our planet would become really sick. So this is really the biggest, it's not the COVID epidemic. This really is the biggest epidemic of all time. Now, this is a very serious matter. That's because these lifestyle disorders are plucking away people in the prime of their lives. I think today we lost, I think, a fetal medicine specialist, 41 years of age, and many like that, dropping down dead. So the children who are just in school, in junior school, they lose their parents, and elderly people who are infirm and their lifeline is their children. In the prime of their life, they lose their children. And so this is really a very important matter, I think, that we have to address. The doctor community as well as the rest. This is something, it's not the COVID, but this is the biggest epidemic of all time. The question to ask is why? Why? Because historically, now we have the maximum information, but we seem to have the worst health status in history now. Now, that's because there's abundance of information, but they're all mostly contradictory in nature. And you can see various examples. There's one health influencer who says red meat is good health. Another one says stop meat, go vegan. Then the one who says it's important to lift heavy weights in the gym. Another one says you need to be very gentle at home. Don't do anything, you will damage your joints. One says drink turmeric milk for health, good. Another one says avoid all dairy products. One says intermittent fasting is very good. Another one says it's dangerous. So if people are going to say like this, influencer noise, so the person who consumes this information is totally in a tizzy as to what really he should follow. So when it comes to health, context is king. So you'd all be surprised to know that all these people are right in their own way. They're all right in their own way. But unless you have a context to all this, and just a reel of 30 seconds doesn't mean anything at all. So once we see the context, all of them are right in their own way. And therefore, we need an universal health code. So unless we have a universal health code to interpret all this, then it just becomes noise, nothing else. Now, classic examples, people say dietary fat causes heart disease. One camp says, the other camp says fat is essential, you have to eat more fat. One says coffee is very good, it reduces dementia risk. One says coffee increases blood pressure. One says eggs raises cholesterol, not good. Other says excellent protein source. Carbohydrates, one group says it's very important, whole grains are very important. One says you have to cut carbs and go keto if possible. One says sun exposure is good. One says it causes skin cancer. And red meat says linked to cancer. Other says, it's a very good source of omega-3 and vitamin B12. So if this is going to be the different camps, so how are we going to get this information from that? So there's no surprise that we are in the problem. So once we have this so much different information, it leads to paralysis of thought and action. So most people give up trying. Now, when you take doctors, it's very interesting to see this. Now, forget about disease and all that. Just say somebody walks into a hospital and says, let's keep it very simple, and says, doctor, can you advise me what's the good thing to eat for good health? Now, let's assume there are 15 major specialties and he goes to each one. All 15 specialists are going to give him a different advice as to what to eat. Forget about other things in health. Just simple eating, they're going to give different advices. Now, a person may have 2 or 3 meals a day. Now, if you have 15 different advisors, how does he work out what is good for health? This from the doctors, because we all work in silos. We all work in our individual specializations, and there is no integrated approach. So we all think what we think, we interpret things our own way, and that really is not good. So we must quickly start speaking the same language to arrest this epidemic. And therefore, we need a universal health code. Now, for long, we have been telling people that this is good for you and this is not good for you. Doctors especially have been saying all that. Now, this type of approach saying do this, don't do this is known as the kindergarten approach. For the simple reason, it only works in kindergarten students. So if you tell them this is the way I brush my teeth early in the morning, all that's for kindergarten stuff. But if you tell this to adults, do this, don't this, they are just not going to listen to you. This never worked. Over the last 50 years, we found this has been an absolute failure. So real change begins with understanding. So unless you make people understand what is correct, they're just not going to listen just because you said that. So do this, don't do this, just not going to work. And therefore, we need a universal health code. Now, commercial interests, of course, are very powerful. Now, this is my favorite example: strawberry flavored cornflakes, sugary cornflakes that you eat. It not only is thought as is not unhealthy. People think it's healthy, but it is promoted as a health food. So if you're unhealthy, you need to eat Kellogg's strawberry cornflakes to get healthy. Because why? Because they've added some vitamins and it says no fat. And so it becomes a health food itself. That's really strange. Now we find that actually it's very tragic to see parents force these biscuits just because, even if the sugar content isn't enough, most biscuits come with a spray of sugar over it. Now, this is sheer poison, and we find parents force feeding the children on that. This is truly tragic how children are force fed these biscuits because commercial interests tell us this is really health food. It's good health for your children, and nothing more tragic than that. So, misinformation for profit is very powerful, and we need to work together to overcome it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Therefore, we need unless we all agree upon something, it's not going to work. So, we need a universal health code. Now we find these scare tactics all over. People saying, microwave is very bad. There is a microplastic crisis there. Coffee contains many toxins, etc., etc. Now remember that whenever somebody is fearing you or putting fear into you, they want to sell you something. Always like that. Maybe they want to sell you some kind of an alternative to microwave or an alternative to coffee or some other container. So whenever somebody is, putting fear into you, the next step is they're trying to sell you something. So we need to have, all of us need to have some core knowledge on health. And that's the only thing that will protect against fear mongering. Otherwise, we are going to succumb to this fear mongering. And people are going to drive this fear for profit reasons. Now, this attention grabbing is very interesting, shortcuts. So if you take 95% of books you take or internet material videos that you take, they will promise you some shortcut. Like, there's one magic molecule. If you eat that, your health is guaranteed. There are 2 all important habits if you do, your health is assured. If you have 5 hacks if you do, or use 10 secrets, you will be there. You do this 4 exercise, then you'll definitely get health. You eat this 20 superfoods. But the thing is, in reality, these are all mythical. They do not exist in real life. But because they promise us this, we all wait for this to happen, and we are not industrious in looking after our own health. Now, imagine that, in an exam, if somebody thinks that the exam paper will be leaked the previous day, then there's no way how he's going to learn the whole semester. He's going to wait for the day, then that exam paper is going to get leaked, and therefore he can pass the exam. If he believes that that exam paper is going to, that's how the human mind works. And all this, even these authors of all these books and internet videos, they themselves don't believe this. This is just to grab attention, to grab eyeballs, as they call it. They themselves don't believe in it, but because they promote it like that, we believe in it. We think that there's 10 secrets that will guarantee health. These are all mythical and they never exist in real life. So we need a back to basics. That's what will get us health. And we need a universal health code for that. Now, of course, the new kid on the block, we now have AI. And many people think that the AI will be a substitute for everything. And the AI will give them all the health advice. There's no need for anything else. Well, if you take any health query and put it into different LLMs, whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, or Perplexity, you put that into that, they'll get different answers. That itself tells you that AI is not going to solve this problem because you're going to get different answers in different LLMs. Anthropic is going to give you a different, Claude is going to give you a different answer. So not all things in life can be artificial, especially health cannot be artificial. It has to be human. Then, of course, this is the most important thing for people here. Many people believe that they don't have to invest in health and the doctor will look after their health. I'm sure many in this audience also believes that way. However, if you look at the population, it's very, very interesting. If you look at the general population versus doctors, and this is the biggest paradox. And if we take the general population, the average lifespan is around 69 years. For doctors, only 59 years. That is shocking. 59 years for doctors. So the doctors who are supposed to be the guardians of health actually have a lower lifespan than the general population. Then if you look at the lifestyle diseases, diabetes, hypertension, you can see that the red refers to the doctors, the blue refers to the general population. So all lifestyle diseases, the doctor's incidence is more than the general population. This is truly a paradox. Those people who are supposed to be knowledgeable on health have the health parameters. It's like going to a tennis coach who doesn't know tennis. I mean, this doesn't make sense at all. But the reason is very easy to find. In medical school curriculum, anywhere in the world, wherever you go, there is only, people are taught, doctors are taught about disease management. The core focus on disease management, and nothing is done about health and wellness or health optimization. There's not even one single class in your entire medical school in your undergraduate days for you to. So no wonder they are not experts at health. It is disease, and we all become different experts in different diseases. Now, this is a recent thing in the Times of India, a bitter pill. So 20% of doctors are obese, every other doctor is diabetic, and 1 in every 4 is high. This is really shocking statistics for the general population to see that the most unhealthy person in your community is probably your doctor. Now, we live in a very strange world. Now, when people have, for example, they have right-sided abdominal pain, they go to Google, Dr. Google, and ask, I have pain here, what should I do? And they buy something from the local pharmacy and eat something. Whereas the doctors are really the experts in diseases. So when you have a health problem, when you have a disease, you must access your doctor. But that's when we Google and we go to doctors, and most people go to doctors and ask for health advice. And doctors are not experts in health advice. So if you don't have the real true information, there's a big price to pay. And no wonder we are dealing with the biggest epidemic of all time. So when you don't have trustworthy information, people freeze, they take no action, and they tend to defer healthy behavior forever, indefinitely. Chronic disease rises, as we saw. The most important thing, there is a pseudoscience that fills into the vacuum. So when science contradicts itself, I showed you many examples, quackery and wellness myths rush in to offer false certainty. So you find that all kinds of people sitting under a tree giving out health advice. That's because as doctors, we have not taken over that space. And so others are. Now, if you don't give people get good health advice, it's going to cause a big mental strain on people. Then people are going to lose trust in anything that we do as doctors or whatever that we do for wellness or health, if there is no systematic approach to what we are doing. And that really, really is the cost of all this confusion. So the missing link. So we all know, doctors here would know that Harrison's would be taken as the standard for diseases, and detection and management of disease structured science. We all know that. Now, some specialists may have some nuances. Some nephrologists may not agree with 100% of what Harrison says. That's in his field. That's fine. But he would agree 98%. Like that, and all specialists would agree 98% of what Harrison says. But when it comes to health, there's no standard at all. So what is really missing is a universal health code. And it's time that we get a universal health code. Otherwise, we are going to go spiraling down. So if we're going to create a universal health code, how should it look like? It's not a set of rules at all. It's a shared framework of actionable evidence-based principles. So it must be a consensus-based foundation. It must be built on the highest agreement findings across publications. So this health code is not our batch's view on any aspect of health. This is the condensed information that's already available. It's not the 101 view on any health matter. It is what is condensed from what is already available. Tens of thousands of publications. It must be in the Universal Health Code must be in plain language. It must translate complex science into actionable daily habits that any person can understand and follow. Basically, it must be a user manual. It must be continuously updated. So it's not written in stone. So as new evidence emerges, we must be able to change that. So the code evolves as new science emerges. That's very important, I think. It must be individually adaptable. Core principles are always universal, but there must be a layer of personalization. So we are humans, we are all not, all same. There is some variability, and we must acknowledge that as well. We must be free from commercial bias, and there must be zero industry funding. So this must all be what a universal code must mean. So in a multi-layered science of health, we need a universal health code. Otherwise, we're not going to progress. And that's exactly what we, our batch of 84 batch MMCs ventured to do. So 55 of us, you can see the list here, various specialties. We have nephrologists, cardiologists, gastroenterologists, all that, we all together. And we went over tens of thousands of publications on health, on disease, and then we could condense into a 300-page book. That is very important to make it. We can write 30,000 pages on health. Very easy to write 30,000 pages, but that will not be of any use to anyone. We had condensed it into 300 pages so that it is useful. So that's exactly what we set out to do, the 55 of us. And as we told earlier, our batch is called as the CES quiz, and that's what we think is our contribution to the community. And this is what we created, the Universal Health Code. So the human body is a biological machine. So how do we make this practical? How do we make this knowledge very practical? So we have to do it by considering the human body as a biological machine. It's like your car or like your computer. So those are our mechanical machines, but our body is a biological machine. Only then we can translate what we have in the code into real life. So this is called as the mechanistic approach. Once you start viewing the human body as a machine, it is the mechanistic approach. Then things start falling into place. Things suddenly start falling into place. So then we find that the machines will always show predictable behavior. So the human body, once you start applying the mechanistic approach, it will start showing very predictable behavior. Just like how we know diseases and medicines have predictable behavior, we as doctors, we know that. But in health, our body will also show very predictable behavior. The output is dependent on input. All parts are interrelated. Oops. Oh, I got that wrong. Sorry about that. Are you seeing my slides now?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Slide share.
Slide. I had to go to slide share. Yeah, one second.
No, sorry.
Now it's not in slide share, no?
It is in slide share. We have to see it in full
full
screen.
screen.
Go to resume slideshow. That's all. Resume slideshow.
There is no resume button here.
I can see it on my screen. Your thing is visible.
The slideshow.
Yeah, I
From
mean,
file go.
The top left side, sir. The top left.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah, got that. Yeah. Right. Okay. So the inputs will determine the outputs. So this is a very important distinction that we make, and probably what we have been getting it all wrong as doctors. We have been talking about heart health, liver health, bone health, kidney health, etc. There is nothing like that. Only disease is very focal. So we can talk about liver disease. A liver specialist will talk about liver disease. That's fine because our treatment is going to be focal on the liver. But health is never like that. You cannot make the liver or the heart or the bone supremely healthy and the rest of the body allowed to decay. It doesn't work like that. So health is always holistic and universal. That's probably the mistake that we have been making. So the human body shows predictable behavior. It's based on fundamental core principles. There's no mystery, there's no ambiguity, there's no shortcuts. So when you start considering the human body as a biological machine, it needs, so any complex machine, whether it's a mechanical machine or a biological machine, will need an operating manual. So if you don't have an operating manual, you're going to run into a lot of problems. Suppose if you have a big, a generator in your place, if you don't look after it, you're going to have production loss, you're going to have system failure, the maintenance costs are going to go extremely high, and one day it's just going to give up and fail. So similarly, the same thing is going to occur to the human body as well, unless we have a maintenance manual. And that seems to be the missing link. So certainly we need a user manual for our body. Now, this has been a glaring omission thus far. I'm not sure why no one thought of this idea that we have done so many, we have done 100,000 books we have done on health, but nobody thought about writing an operating user manual for the human body ever worldwide. Now, I really don't know the reason, but this is a glaring omission thus far for sure. Now, are we the only ones who, the 84 batch who thought about it? No. This is an effort by none other than Andrew Huberman, a very famous neuroscientist from the US. And they are also compiling a user manual. And there may be others compiling elsewhere, I don't know. But certainly that we are the first one to come out with a user manual. And we are very extremely proud that, that we have done it from India. That the first ever maintenance user manual, which is like, a lot of specialists got together and created a manual. The first ever effort has been from India, and we're extremely proud of that. So this user manual concept is a very effective to produce results. Now, this is Dr. Steiner. Some of you will know that. So he and his family had a plane accident in rural Nebraska. And when they went to the local hospital there, they found that the treatment was below par and they went to a lot of complications. So he said, that people cannot treat the first hour after trauma, known as the golden hour, however they want. They need to have a protocol. And so he decided to write that protocol or compile that protocol, which is known as the ATLS manual. All doctors here would know about that. So this has been a game changer in the management of trauma. So anywhere in the world that you go, whether it's the US, Africa, Europe, India, Delhi, Chennai, wherever you go, you'll find that the first hour management, if you have a trauma, a road traffic accident will be the same across all hospitals, across the world. That is what they will achieve. And so millions of lives have been saved because the same protocol is followed worldwide. And therefore, we need, similarly for health as well, we need to have a manual and we need to agree on certain things. So the thing that we emphasize in the Universal Health Code is that there are no shortcuts. There's no magic molecule. There is no all-important habit. There are no secrets. There are no hacks. There are no keyx. There are no superfoods. So the first page of the manual says there are no secrets. There are no shortcuts. There's only a scientific code and a methodology to unlock optimal health. So if we keep on thinking that we're going to get a shortcut, we're never going to do the real thing that's needed. So what is really needed is to do the basic things consistently. That's what is needed. And if you keep on thinking that you're going to get a shortcut, the human mind works in that way. You will never give importance to what is really important if you keep waiting for a shortcut. So these are the 9 keys that we found to be very integral. So we have the 3 basic keys, we have the 3 S keys, and then we have the 3 B keys. So how we use these 9 keys is what determines your health. And we all have to condense all these matter together. And that is absolutely important. So these 9 keys reflect the most consistent cross-cultural consensus in health science. Each key has got a science behind it, which has to be understood. Not just saying do this, don't do that, but everyone has to understand the science between, just like anything is a science, health is also a science. It's not random information. So we have to understand all that. So how we apply these 9 keys will determine whether you're going to be healthy or not. Now, the important mistake that we made was we were working in isolation, in silos, especially doctors, based on the specialization. This will not work. In health, everything is intricately related. And that's what we found it's so difficult to compile in the book. Any one chapter you touch, you will have a reflection on the other chapter. So we had to rewrite, some 10 times, some 20 times to condense all that information together. Any one thing you touch, something else will not be coherent on some other chapter. So that has to be changed. So we had to refine before we come across we could distill a code. So this is very important for people. So there are basically 4 health status. So most people will believe that either they're healthy, they're diabetic or non-diabetic, they're hypertensive or not hypertensive, but it doesn't work like that. There are 4 health status. So the most of us are in this gray zone. That is the light gray zone. That is the neutral or disease-free zone. This is not a pseudo wellness. So we think we're healthy, but we're not really. This is the reason why people are just walking on the road, going to the gym, and then they fall dead because they think they're healthy, but they're not really healthy. That is a pseudo wellness. Now, the important point here is that the human body is not built for the current environment, the modern lifestyles and things. or changing. The human body is not built for that. And therefore, we have to constantly do something to get optimal health status. Just being passive is not going to help us remain healthy. We are going to slip down this slippery slope. So we have Harrison's to look after, end organ damage, the dark gray or early reversible disease, how to manage. We have Harrison. But what about these two zones? How do we know how to go to optimal health from neutral status or pseudo wellness? How do we go about? Now, unless we have a universal health code to take us there, only when we reach optimal status, we don't run the risk of sliding into early disease and end stage disease. If you are if you're flirting in this light gray zone of pseudo wellness, it's only a matter of time before you slip into true disease. So I'll just share some insights that we had to UHC, which you'll all find interesting. So the UHC is a manual. So it's not meant to be read cover to cover like a novel in one go. That's not what it's meant for. It's a constant companion, just like you have a user manual for your car. You don't read from cover to cover on day one. You use it as you getting more and more knowledge about your car. You start looking more efficiently. You learn to drive better. You learn to optimize fuel consumption. You learn to maintain your gear pads. You learn to maintain your tires. So as you go, you start using the user manual. So like that is a constant companion of your body. As you learn more and more about your body, it's a constant companion for optimal health. Now, a lot of people have asked me whether this is for the doctors. Certainly not for doctors. It's for everyone. Doctors are also not knowledgeable about health, so it applies to doctors as well. So we had a tough bridge to cross. How do we make all this slightly technical information for everybody? So we got the answer from the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, if we see the Sanskrit slokas, there will be an immediate translation in red of what the Sanskrit means. So similarly, we adopted the same principle. You can see that that whatever word that we think is technical or not known to the general population, we have immediately you will get what that means in red. So that so it becomes very easy. It's like reading the Bhagavad Gita. It's there. You don't have to go to refer something else to know the meaning. So all technical terms will have the meaning by side by side in red italics. So that's how we cross that bridge. So these are the 12 chapters that the USC covers. So each one has been written, rewritten 20-25 times, so that to make the whole thing cohesive, meaningful, and very useful for everyone. So the things that we found very fascinating during the course of this compiling the manual is that we all think these lifestyle diseases are all different entities, but actually we find that they're all different manifestations of the same disease that's hiding within your cells. Okay, this is the thing that whatever that you want to avoid, for example, if you want to avoid diabetes, the advice is not different for diabetes as for cancer or for acid disease of the stomach. So we want to avoid all this. Whatever advice or whatever health you're going to do or whatever health intervention you're going to do is the same across all these diseases. These are all different manifestations of cellular sickness that is hiding in all the cells of your body. The cellular sickness is like your infestation of like a building rotting. So unless you address that thing, you're not going to address the source. We are just doing superficially. If you try to address these problems, you're not going to get an end result. We have to address the core problem, which is the cellular sickness hiding in the cells. So when we insult our body through various things that we do, day-to-day life, we insult the body. So we can do a positive input to your body once your body is a machine, or you can do a negative insult. So they have three common mechanisms. One is the chronic low-grade inflammation. Another is the excessive oxidative stress. And then you have signaling malfunction. So very similar to a cell phone showing overheating, a signal receptor failure, or getting a static or electric charge. It's not a good thing. Then the fourth one is not inside your cell, it's outside your cell. It's your microbiome dysfunction. For people who are not doctors, the microbiome is the bacteria, fungi, or the microorganisms living in your gut. And that's also a very important health constituent. So these four mechanisms are how we damage our body or create the cellular sickness by doing various lifestyle things which damage this. And so all these manifestations, the 14 different manifestations which we termed as the metabolic danger, is the common manifestation of cellular sickness that is inside the cells. It's so fascinating to see this. But as doctors, we look at it from different angles. It's like the 6 blind men. We look at the manifestations of patients coming to our clinics, and that's we treat them through drugs, etc. And we're not addressing the source. The source is the cellular sickness. And as you start seeing more and more, it's so obvious that these are the 4 mechanisms, that the common mechanisms by which we cause the cellular sickness. So the common question is, okay, you compiled a manual, but what does it subscribe to? Does it subscribe to the American Heart Association or the European standard? No, it does not subscribe to anything of that. There's something called as a human biological blueprint. Now, in our genes or in our blueprint, there were environmental factors in our planet through which we evolved by evolutionary engineering that is imprinted into that. So our body is made for our planet. So if we had, if we are some other planet, some other species is there, their structure will be entirely different from us. It will be based on their local environmental factors. So our planet, our Mother Earth made our body. This is a fundamental thing to understand. So whatever that we do or whatever we respect as evolutionary engineering, that we have a human biological blueprint. And if we are synchronous with that, then we are doing something healthy. It is not an American standard or a European standard or an Indian standard. It is very simply what the body is made for through evolutionary engineering. So whether it's circadian rhythm, whether it's physical activities as important as eating or nutrition or light exposure or social connections, everything or optimized everything is based on this biological blueprint. So we devised it into 15 codes. So the biological rule of homeostasis, the code of biological tipping point, the principle of feedback loops and preferential usage, etc. So we have these 15 codes. That's what the human body subscribes to. And once you subscribe to these principles, you automatically know what is healthy and what is unhealthy for your body, whether you are doing a positive input or a negative insult. This is what our code is in our biological blueprint. So we have a section on that. And this is all published in various journals, in biomedical journals, etc. But it's all been compiled here. The other important thing is that the body is a delicate balances of different things. For example, if you have stress hormones versus happy chemicals, energy save mode versus burn, that's how, like a car subscribes certain things, mechanical principles. Like that, a body also subscribes to biological. Tissue building versus autophagy, sleep versus wakefulness, exercise versus recovery, hunger. So if you tip one balance, if you think this is very good for health and you overdo it, then you'll tip that balance. You'll get a negative effect. So any balance that you touch will have a domino effect on the other balances. So we have to look at the body as a biological machine. And then if you subscribe to our biological code, then things starts to fall into place. So fascinating to see how we can signal our body, how we can use the machine very efficiently. How just by adjusting our macronutrient proportion, carbs, proteins, and fats, we can signal. So everything that we do are signals that we're sending to our own machine. And whether if you have different dimensions of exercises, whether you do a resistance training or you want to do a stretching, how we signal our body to. So all these are signals that we can send our body to make it operate efficiently. Breathing patterns. We now know how exactly to signal the body through breathing patterns. We know how to, through meditation, etc., how to produce brain chemicals that would be help in the body getting healthy. So all this is so fascinating to see, and it's well covered in the manual. How we can, there are no switches like the car. You cannot put a switch on and off, but there's equivalent switches in our body, which we have to realize, which it's very scientifically we can signal our body. So everything that we do is either a positive signal or a negative signal. And once we understand it, it's so fascinating to see all this. Then, of course, for everything, there's a science behind it. For example, somebody may say, I exercise for 1 hour every day, but is it really giving you health benefits? That's questionable, really. So we all think that some people going to the gym are very healthy. That may not be true. And these are some of the popular bodybuilders who passed away in the 20s and 30s. So building muscle is good. Muscle is good. Fat is bad. But building too much of muscle may not be good. Now, if you do too much cardio, that can be very detrimental. Marathon runners, for example, will not have any muscle, and they will have what's known as volume hypertrophy of the heart. And you can see that many marathon runners have not done well as well. So exercise is good, but you have to understand the science behind it. Otherwise, you can do the wrong exercise. And more importantly, you can spend an hour every day and it may not be helpful at all. So unless you understand the science, and the science is given in this chapter, and we have named that chapter as exercise. So the final thing that we come to is that it's all very great that we say all this, but then how do we monitor it? So this is the paradigm shift in how we start to look after our body. So far, we go to a master health check. Most people think they go to a master health check and they are given a report saying you don't have any disease. They think they're in the pink of health, and they come and tell us, doctor, I went to a master health check and then everything is fine. No, you are not at all. Because so far, modern medicine has divided us into healthy and diseased in a very binary fashion. This is not going to work in health at all. Absolutely not going to work in health at all. So this is a paradigm. It is not a static reading saying healthy or unhealthy. It's a question of how you move all these dials. And this manual teaches you how you to move all these dials the right way. So everything is a marker. Triglyceride is a marker, uric acid is a marker, vitamin D is a metabolic marker. It's not a question of saying I have normal vitamin D. No, it doesn't work like that. You can make it better. There's always scope for improvement through lifestyle interventions. So this is another paradigm shift, I think, that we have to acknowledge, that so far we have been operating with medical normal values. So Harrison told us what is medical normal, and we said, okay, this patient is diseased, diabetic or non-diabetic, hypertensive, not hypertensive, etc. Now that's not going to work in health. So we devised what are known as OH values or optimal health values. So Harrison gives only in binary mode, healthy or unhealthy, whereas we talked about optimal health values. Now, the basis of the optimal health values is that the constant reflection of your status and performance of your biological machine. So OH values are not rigid like medical normal values. It's more of a trend with soft cutoffs. OH values are dynamic, always scope to improve within the tipping point. You must make sure you have to improve, but you must not cross the tipping point. Solitary optimal health values are never taken in isolation and always as a spectrum. So we have given optimal health values for all parameters. I'll come to that in a second. And that's how you know your machine is doing correctly or not. Just like any other machine that you have. You have to look at these dials and see whether you're progressing in the right direction or not. So that's to give you a mechanistic score. We have the US, very simple things that we have. We have 10 parameters that you can do at home anytime. You do your body mass index, your strength assessment, mobility assessment, etc., blood pressure, etc. You do at home, and there are 5 parameters that you need a lab. So these simple 15 tests tells you how you are faring in health. Are you in the right direction or you are going in the wrong direction? These simple parameters tells you. So this master health check is not valid for health at all. Master health check must always be called as a disease check. It is to find out whether you have disease or not. It's got nothing to do with health, although it's called as master health check or MHC. It is not a master health check. So master health check refers to these health refers to these 15 parameters, which you monitor 10 at home, 5 maybe on a yearly basis you monitor in the lab, and that tells you how. And this is across all the metabolic danger, all the 14 components, not for one particular component. So once we start looking at our body like this, and once we have a maintenance manual, then things start to fall into place. So these are the 9 keys, more expanded version, and how we work on these 9 keys. Each chapter delves into that. The most important thing is each chapter is interconnected. They not work in isolation. There's no superfood. If you eat, you'll get healthy. There's nothing like that. You have to look at all the 9 keys and see how they're related to each other. And once you start understanding it, then it's very easy to follow what is good and not good. And then you can put a score, a very simple score out of 15. Then every couple of months, you can see how your score is increasing well. That means you are progressing towards optimal health. And once you reach optimal health, you will not slip into early disease and chronic disease. That's your guarantee that you're not going to slip down. So that's how the UH mechanistic score works. So lastly, so where do we go from here? So information without clarity is noise, and clarity without action is wasted. So the point I want to say, there are a lot of Jipmer people, of course, the people behind the marvelous medicine. Now, what I want to say is that if the Madras medical students didn't write this, and if all the Jipmerites sat together from different specialties and wrote a book with this aim in mind, my guess is that 98% would be exactly the same. Exactly what we have written, you will also write. It took us 3-4 years to write this, but any group of doctors from different specialties sit together, go through tens of thousands of publications and try to condense a code, the code will look 98% similar. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So why do we want to build a consensus for UHC? So however expansion that we can do, we want to build a consensus so that we can take this concept forward. We have to arrest this epidemic. It's in our hands. We want to build a free open access digital platform for the code. The code is not written in stone. The code is dynamic, and as new information comes through, new things are published, then we have to change accordingly. Then we have to start off with the individuals first, like everybody in the audience, and it is everybody's role to spread this message to different people through various channels, and then slowly reach healthcare providers and eventually by official bodies. Because we need to have something. Government legislation has not arrested this epidemic. Putting warning on labels has not arrested this epidemic. $1 billion investment by governments has not arrested this epidemic. This arresting this epidemic is in our hands, and we need a tool for that. The tool is your Universal Health Code. And of course, we want to translate it into other languages, and then we want to reach a larger audience by various other channels we want to reach so that we can address this epidemic before it drowns us fully. So thank you for your attention. I will stop sharing now. Thanks.
Over to you, Selvi. We'll take all the questions at the end.
So as Selvi starts off, I'd like to say, so Selvi is one of the co-authors. So Selvi will talk a bit about fasting. So each of these 9 keys, one of the keys is fasting. So we don't have time to cover all the keys, but we thought we'll give you a sample of one key of how the UHC works. And Selvi will take you through one of the keys, which is fasting. Yeah.
Singing. Movie. So there is a Sanskrit saying, Langanam Parama Aushadam. Langanam means Parama is.
Maybe a bit louder.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Better now.
Better now, thanks.
Parama Aushadam. Parama is the biggest medicine, or the Aushadam is medicine. So Langanam Parama Aushadam is a Sanskrit saying. So the concept of fasting being an essential contributor of health is centuries old. Every religion has this. Currently, you see Ramazan going on. Then we have Jains doing Paryushan. 9 days they do only water fasting. Hindus do a lot of fasting. Christians do it around Lent. So it's not new. This is a very old concept. And often we tend to confuse fasting with starvation. Starvation is restriction of calories. We end up feeling miserable, cranky, angry, and malnourished. Whereas fasting is a different concept altogether. And often, it is the misconception is fasting is unhealthy, and you often get forced and force-fed by family and friends, and food has become a kind of comfort. For comfort, you use food. For entertainment, we use food. And, food has become a problem, actually. So if you look at it, we fast every day anyway, from dinner or bedtime to breakfast. We don't, when we sleep, we fast. So it is like sleep. This not eating in this window period is actually helps in the body undergoing resetting, repair, and healing. And it's also a nature's design. If you look at a lot of animals hibernate for months together in the winter. And the sickness anorexia, if you see babies, when they fall, the first thing they do is stop eating. And also, we have dogs, and the minute the dog is sick, you find them, they won't eat their food, curl up and lie down. And that's the way of, it's deeply wired. The fasting is deeply wired into biology across all species for the body is actually, if you look at it, it's like a hybrid engine that, like you have battery and petrol. We use both glucose and fat as fuel. And stored fat actually is a very important source of energy, but because we are constantly in a fed state, we do not use fat as a fuel on a regular basis. So we lose that metabolic flexibility to use fat as fuel when we keep eating. And with frequent eating, that capacity is lost. And this frequent eating also leads to both insulin and leptin resistance. And it's leptin which tells us it's enough that you've had, enough of food that you've had. And when the leptin resistance happens, then we keep on eating, and then leads to several metabolic syndrome associated problems. What is actually fasting? There's again a lot of misconceptions. So if you, particularly, if you look at Ekadashi, we modify it to whatever we think is right. And, people start taking fruits or milk and then call it fasting. No, that's not fasting. Fasting is when our body's metabolic signal to start a specific, food actually initiates that metabolic signal to start specific metabolic processes. So a minimum of at least 10 calories are required to activate the process. So basically fasting essentially means nothing to drink except water. You can have black coffee, black tea, infused water. Sometimes, when you fast, you do lose a lot of electrolytes. And so therefore, half lemon with some salt is allowed. And that actually keeps you well balanced and hydrated. And definitely no fruit juice or fruits. This often I find people, they say they're fasting, but they'll eat fruits or fruit juice, which is counterproductive. So types of fasting. So we do this everyday fasting. The default setting should be at least 12 hours from your last meal to the next meal in the morning. It should be at least 12 hours. And this is the minimum required. And then if you can push it a little, what we do is this intermittent fasting, or popularly known as IF. The easiest window to do is 16-8. So where 8 hours is a feeding window, which in that space you can have two good meals. And 16 hours is fasting, where you don't take anything except the fluids that I mentioned earlier. This is the most popular method that is in vogue. Here we skip breakfast. Most people tend to skip breakfast. You can do it either way, either skip breakfast or dinner, but dinner being the most sociable meal where, you have together with
Dr.
the
Selvi,
family.
sorry, there are few comments mentioning your voice is not very clear. A bit louder, please.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah,
better.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So
Thank you.
I get.
I think you need to stay close to your mic. That's all. When you're moving, the voice is changing.
Okay.
Coming better when I
So most people are comfortable with skipping breakfast for the simple reason that dinner is the most sociable time with the family. So, then if you want to push that benefit a little bit more, in 18 hours of fasting and 6 hours of shorter eating window. So this actually elicits a stronger autophagy trigger. We'll come to what is autophagy a little later. And then some people do this one meal a day, OMAD. So the challenge with one meal a day is difficulty in meeting the protein and micronutrient requirements. Unless that is well balanced, in the long run, OMAD can be damaging. And some people do the 5:2. So 5 days of eating normally and 2 days of restriction to less than 500 calories of a day. So this also helps. And some actually do alternate fasting. This is very popular with Jains, and they do it as a religious ritual where they eat one day and then fast another day. And then there is a concept of extended fasting, where you elicit this maximum benefit out of autophagy. And before you attempt all this extended fasting, it helps to be fat adapted, to be on the hybrid mode, to be able to use both fat and fuel as your energy source. So before you start fasting, to go on a healthy protein and a fat-rich diet helps to sustain a fasting period. So what is autophagy? Now, this was first coined by the Belgian scientist. I think it was Christian Duval or somebody in 1963. And then in 2016, Yoshinori Oshumi got a Nobel Prize for explaining the benefits of autophagy. So it's essentially when you eat, what happens is there is, because the glucose levels goes up, so insulin response happens, and the mTOR pathway, this mammalian target of rapamycin pathway, this gets activated.
Your
And
voice
then
is again breaking, Selvi. Just
I'm actually very close to the system. Autophagy is actually switched off. I think I should switch off my video. My internet could be unstable. Yeah. So autophagy is switched off when you eat, and when you fast, the insulin levels and mTOR levels drop. The AMPK pathway activates, and the autophagy is switched on. So it kicks in about 16 hours of fasting, and it peaks around 24 to 48 hours of fasting. So what happens in this period? The cells recycled all the damaged and old stuff within it, all the misfolded proteins and all the organelles that are aging, the senescent organelles, all of this gets recycled, and all the lysosomes are activated there, and it auto digests the waste and uses it up as calories, and the cell is renewed. And when you, in the fasted state, if you do simple exercise, that also accelerates the autophagy. Moving forward. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can see your screen. Yeah.
We can stop that autophagy slide.
Yeah, it's not moving.
Try mouse roll.
Yeah.
The wheel in the mouse.
So the benefits of autophagy fasting, there are many benefits. One is related to cancer. This is my pet project. I work with breast cancer, and I can very confidently say that hormone-dependent breast cancer, postmenopausal breast cancer, is directly related to metabolic syndrome and related to insulin resistance, low-grade inflammation, and visceral obesity. So when you do autophagy fasting, particularly in normal healthy individuals as a preventive measure, it does reduce the effects of risk of cancer. And when it's combined diligently with chemotherapy, it could enhance the efficacy of cancer treatment. And as a rehabilitation post-treatment lifestyle modification measure, it could help lower the risk of recurrence. And it also has some benefit in slowing and reversal of accelerated aging. We all know that metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance ages significantly, largely because of the telomeres getting shortened, and that the rate of telomere shortening is decreased with regular autophagy fasting. And there's a lot of metabolic gains and detox that happens when we do autophagy fasting. So the myths about fasting, that intermittent fasting, a lot of people say it causes acidity and it will exacerbate my reflux or acid peptic disease. Contrary to that, actually, you do regular intermittent fasting, it could be your reflux and APD issues, acid peptic disease issues get better actually. And there was this paper that by American Heart Association sometime around 2024, I think, on intermittent fasting increasing the all-cause cardiac mortality. There were several flaws in that paper. Actually, what you eat in the eating window also matters. So you fast 16 hours, but then go and eat junk in that 6 hours or 8 hours, then it actually has no benefit. And then we you can't blame intermittent fasting for that. And And it's often like, people believe breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And how can you quit or stop having breakfast? Yes, breakfast is the most important meeting, but it's not time bound to 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. When you break the fast, is breakfast. If you break at 11 o'clock, it's breakfast time. So eat healthy then. And then there is like some people prefer skipping dinner. And this actually the chronology, circadian rhythm. 10% of people like me, we have this issue where the circadian rhythm is so different that we have the sleep phase advancement syndrome. So tend to sleep early and get up very early. It could be like 8 o'clock and 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So in that case, eating late, actually eating the window between your dinner time and sleep time should be at least 3 hours. If you sleep, if you eat and sleep immediately, then the sleep is restless. You don't get good sleep. Your resting heart rate goes up. Your heart rate variability is also going down, and there's a lot of issues that happen. So the belief, many people believe that they can't sleep well if they don't have dinner. In fact, the contrary is true. You sleep well if you have a good window between your dinner time and sleep time. And the common side effects that you could see with fasting is if you're not fat adapted, you could have, if you're not in that hybrid mode, you could develop some sort of carb withdrawal kind of symptoms, could develop headaches, dizziness, and lethargy. Most of these are due to electrolyte imbalance. You tend to drop your sodium a lot when you fast. So stay hydrated and add a little salt to the water with a little lemon. It actually becomes a nice drink and it suppresses appetite too. And sometimes early in the fasting period, you can see diarrhea. This usually is not copious. It settles on in due course. And some people report sleep. There are some palpitations and sleep disturbances that happen in the initial phase. It's also you overcome with practice. And because you use fat for energy, there is nutritional ketosis, and one could have bad breath with fasting. And this usually disappears when the fasting is stopped. And the important thing is when you stop fasting and start refeeding, it's important again not to go and binge on processed food and unhealthy food. Then it actually destroys all the benefit of fasting that you've done. It's important to actually have a very balanced meal. Start off preferably with fermented food, something light and something easy to digest, and then build up on proteins and regular food. And then the problem of muscle loss with fasting. So like Vijay mentioned earlier, it's the balance. You tip off, you do too much fasting, then there is a potential that we could lose muscle mass. But a reasonable interval, say 24 hours every 15 days, or 2 days every month, or slightly extended fasting 2 to 3 days every month, actually is very safe. And it's also important to take a healthy, adequate protein intake in the eating window. So that prevents muscle loss. And now with Walter Longo's fasting mimicking diets have become very popular now. So this actually provides kit from day 1 to day 5, where you reduce the calories to about 700 to 800 with low protein and low carbs. And so that actually mimics fasting. In fact, actually, I'm on that phase. I'm on the 5th day of doing one of those fasts. And I just checked my ketones yesterday. I am in nutritional ketosis. My ketone levels of about 10 millimoles. And my fasting insulin is 2. So the fasting is working. So some of these can be tried too. So who should not fast? This is very important. Pregnant mothers, pregnant women, feeding mothers, and young children should not fast. Their physiology is entirely different, and they should not attempt any kind of fasting. The default 12-hour will do, but no other types of fasting. So we should really exploit the power of the pause, like you see the hibernating animals here. So basically, like a body, the uh, hunter-gatherers type of physiology that we have is built to feast and designed to fast. And we should try this every now and then. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Selvi. The chat box, I'm sure, is flooded with questions. But before that, the moderators, if you would like to highlight or get some points clarified.
Wonderful, both Dr. Bose and Dr. Selvi, especially the ones which you mentioned about things not to do and who should not do. Because if you started the wrong way, you can learn to trouble. So for the benefit of the audience, just if you can just summarize what Dr. Bose has mentioned, the thing is of three pillars. The first pillar is focusing on in and out, which means what you eat, how you fast, and how you burn it in energy, and it's exercise. The second one is 3S, he mentioned, is about sleep, stress control, and sunlight. And the third, 3Bs, breathing, brain, and behavior and social. So this is the complex thing which has to be handled at the same time. So before this thing starts, may I ask Dr. Bose, if somebody would like to start on this journey, how do they really start it? If somebody is interested and curious to start, do you have any tips how they can start this journey?
Well, my focus of my talk was there is no one word to condense the whole thing. So there are no shortcuts. So we need to soon it will be available online as well. But then you can get the hold of one of these. It's available as a Kindle edition as well. And then we need to work on the 9 pillars. So there's no shortcuts. So we need to work on that. Another point that I didn't mention was that what each key's benefit that gives you is different for different people. And the key that you least are good in will give you the maximum benefit. Suppose you are at a gym, you're going to the gym, your muscle is very good, and going on to the gym again and again is not going to give you much benefit. You plateau out. So what you're probably not concentrating is on sleep or reducing your tension. So that's where is stress, and that's where you need to focus on. So one of the things about the score is that you'll plateau out soon. So somebody who keeps on running, that's great. That's a healthy thing to do, but that's not going to give you full health. So you need to start focusing on other keys in which you are deficient in, and then you'll find that that's how you'll find that your overall USC scores gets better.
With regard to the I'd like to mention the blue zones of the world, where we have, Okinawa in Japan, in Sardinia and Italy, and so on, where studies have shown that the longevity of the population is more compared to the rest of the world, and chronic health disease is less. So obviously, there are groups of people who are doing things right. So what is it that we can do in India to replicate that model, and how do we set about making it a population-based thing rather than individual things? What do you think, Dr. Bose?
Well, so the blue zones has been covered in the book as well. So we have got 55 questions so we cover the blue zones. So one of the things about the blue zones is, for example, they don't go to the gym, for example, activities built into their daily lives. So they're all very active. So, and their food is very much what we now know is healthy food and all that. And they're fasting. So all that we cover in this 9 keys is exactly what they're doing. There's no magic formula. There are a lot of books saying, this is the diet of the blue zones, again, to sell books, but it doesn't work like that. It's not just the diet alone, but they're getting all these 9 keys right. And there's a living example. That's the biggest experiment that you can have for the Universal Health Code. They're getting all these 9 keys right. Although they didn't do it, follow a book or anything, but they all got it right. So they're working in reverse, I would think. Yeah. So this blue zone is also covered in the book of how each key relates to what is the good thing that's been found in people in the blue zones.
Dr. Vassan, you'd like to say something now before we take the questions from the audience?
Vassan?
Vassan? You're on mute, Vassan.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of frozen as well.
Yeah.
So.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Go on.
This Vijay told, we've been going on this journey for quite a long time, just before COVID. So, as an orthopedic surgeon, we're worried about all this, exercise and other things. So, a lot of questions. I think there's some questions about exercise, but I just wanted to highlight is any exercise good? People say I'm doing walking regularly every day, and still, I mean, why it is not reducing? What is want to say about exercise?
You want to know about exercise? Is that what you want me to tell something about exercise? Is that what I'm saying?
No, just I mean, people commonly ask, isn't it? And I've been doing walking regularly, half an hour, 45 minutes. And,
Yeah. Okay. I get that.
is
Yeah.
that good enough? That's what.
So that's the thing I briefly covered. So that's a science we call as exercise, as we call it in the book. So just doing exercise for 1 hour, if say I'm doing walking for 1 hour, that may or may not be giving you benefits. So we have different types of exercise. We call it the 4 dimensions of exercise: the cardio, the strength training, the HIIT, and the flexibility and mobility routine. So these are the 4 dimensions of exercise, and each one has its science behind it. Yeah. So we call it the zones of the cardio zones, and you have to exercise in the correct zone to get the benefit that you want. Suppose if your desire is to build VO2 max, as we call it, then you have to be in upper zones. You want to burn fat, you have to be in the lower zone. So how you signal the body is important. So that's very important. And then there are things that the body subscribes, the rules that the body subscribes to. So for example, if you have to keep constantly challenging, putting what we call as overload. So suppose you're walking for 1 kilometer a day, it may have been very useful for you for a year. Then in the second year, it loses its benefit, completely loses its benefit, because you're not putting any overload on it. So like that, there are a lot of principles on exercise. So just because you're doing exercise doesn't mean you're getting benefit out of it. Unless you understand the science behind it, and then you're able to harvest the benefit out of it, then it's going to be probably time wasted about exercise. So about strength training also, we have the rep zones. In flexibility and things, we have the various bands of exercises like that, the science behind it, and we need to do that. And then once you do this correctly, your USG score will go up, and then you know that whatever you're doing it correctly.
Shobana Rajan, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something? You can unmute yourself, Shobana.
Thank you so much. Really nice to see all my friends here. I must say that this was a very energizing discussion and really leaving me reinvigorated. I wanted to basically tell my experience with fasting, which I initiated like 5 years ago, wanting mainly to lose weight. And I think at that time we were not having this WhatsApp group in our classmates, with our classmates and things like that. And so I started by fasting till 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And I used to eat whatever I felt like from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the night. And that worked best for me because I was going to work in the morning. I wouldn't think of eating. So I felt it was easier to do that. And then after about maybe 3 to 4 weeks, I started losing weight. I was so happy and felt and I thought, okay, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And then started my acid peptic disease, which went on and on for 2-3 years, very severe. I went through endoscopies after endoscopies and had a really tough time. And then when we started our group, starting to discuss how to actually fast, when to fast, how to add exercise into the mix. Now I realize that there's more balanced approach. There's no one way to do things to be healthy or to lose weight. And I must say that because of that, we've been doing a lot of things, like not just the gym, but we've been hiking together. So many things that we're all doing together. It's made me felt much more balanced. My acid peptic disease has gone down quite a bit, even without medications. So reversing anything at an older age is also harder. But I do feel that this group and these discussions have helped me a lot. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Dr. Pradeep Reddy, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. Hi, ma'am. This is I'm a junior colleague of Dr. Bose, and I've been on the outset. Let me congratulate all of you for the wonderful job you have done, and I've been closely downloading the articles which Dr. Bose used to send us the frequently before this UHC came out. So I keep discussing about this concept with my friends, and most often my friends they say when they come for my advice, when I say something like this, and then they say only three things you should follow, doc, and they're all non-doctors, and they say that if you're hungry, happy, and horny, then you're healthy. So I wanted to ask the panel here, what is the role of, I mean, is there any role of the libido part where is it really important? Because I did my research and I did find some papers there. So it does play a role in longevity.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, so that's an important function of humans, and then for various exercises that we forget to exercise. So the again topics like this we have covered in the UHC in the QA section, and so there are it's a common exercise that we tend to neglect, or for the eyes. Eyes, of course, have got muscles, and the pelvic floor exercises that we don't. There's a two common sets of exercises that we don't. Now we do other exercises, we don't. So the pelvic floor exercises are very important. Like that, nutrition. So everything is interconnected. So nutrition is very important for your sexual health, your diet, exercise, sleep. Everything is all interconnected. So it's not
Yes.
not an isolated pillar, but all these interventions will certainly help, and that's also one of the markers for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Since Bose mentioned eyes, I'd like to chip in with something. Considering we've been going with the Zoom meeting for an hour or an hour and a half, I'd like all of you to remember Sanju Samson and T20, 2020. There's a 2020 rule for eyes where every 20 minutes of watching the system, you take a 20-second break and look at something 20 feet away. So that way your eyes also not overstrained and you're giving rest to your eyes from computer vision syndrome.
Dr. Venkatesh, you had posted a lot of comments on the chat box. Would you like to take up anything particular?
Yes, ma'am. Interesting session, and thanks for this universal code book. I think synthesizing something like this is an extraordinary effort. It's not very easy. As part of preventive nephrology, I run a metabolic clinic. So we focus mostly on low carb and adequate protein and optimal fat diet protocols, which going through that and trying to design a diet. But the challenges is the average human being is not wanting in knowledge. We can provide them with adequate knowledge in terms of what needs to be done, but the actual challenge is in terms of executing it. And that is where we have kind of fall short. All these lifestyle modifications and the gyan that we kind of impart to them fails miserably because they are not able to deal with their day-to-day life. And health is a social as well as physical as well as a mental well-being definition. So the social aspect of it, particularly longevity, when it comes to building long-term relationships and having a fulfilling, finding a purpose in life, how much do you think as doctors we can contribute in that sphere?
So that's very, very important as well. And I'm not sure whether you went through the UHC, but that's one of the important pillars that we have. One of the S's that, yeah. So that's absolutely, the social connections are very important. And we have to, like any other key, we need to build on that for sure. And then the book covers how we, what are the things that you can do, what are the things you must not do, etc., etc. Stress, of course, and then of course things like meditation and mindfulness, which again covered that also, of course, is a very important component of that. And all that it will do is interrelated, and then you'll find that objective parameters improve. What we're totally disconnected, what we think, what we think is disconnected, sleep and microbiome. It's all connected and health, and that's why you find that we have to break it down for the audience into some common things. I mean, as I said earlier, there are a million things available. So where do you start? So you got to start with the 9 keys. And this is not an encyclopedia of health where it covers everything on health, but it's a good place for everyone to start. And then you can build. For example, you cannot win a marathon by reading a UHC. There's just not enough information on cardio on that. That you have to build up on your own. But it'll give you what are the basics or the foundation of what. So similarly, as you mentioned, social connections are very important. And we got to make that isolation, the blue zones Of all the factors that they found, the one that has got the maximum impact is the social contact. They live in communities, they're very sociable people, they don't live in isolation, and so everything is interrelated. And we have tried to, condense it into a code. So that also, plays a very important part for sure.
Are there any plans for publishing this in vernacular, sir? I mean, the English-speaking world is only 3 to 5% of the middle class, which is supposed to access this information. But I think a large majority, we need it to reach all over India in a vernacular tongue where people can actually understand this. Are there any plans to go ahead with that?
Certainly there are, as I said in my last slide, we are going to think, and then we have to see how the English edition works and how we need to modify things before we go into vernacular. But certainly in that, be surprised to know that it's people. I've got requests from Russia, from Spanish. The people want to translate to Spanish, etc. That also is there, but we need a little ground time to know, whether we need to modify it a little bit. This is not written in stone. As I said, it's a dynamic. The code is dynamic, and probably every year it will change a little bit. But it's the basis of it. And we're certainly going to come in all vernacular languages. And then efforts are on that way. So I always say, if you want to play tennis well, if you copy whatever, Djokovic does, not that he's doing 100% correctly. So you must look at the book like that. So 99% you can, will be correct for you. And there'll be 1% of nuances here and there, but that's fine. But it's a good starting point for everyone. That's the thing that I want to emphasize.
Yeah. The other question, sir, you talked about this universal health, UHC score, universal health score, and I mean that kind of incorporated almost all the major metabolic parameters plus additionally lab values and stuff. So how was this synthesized? I'm kind of more interested in the thought process that went behind in order to collate or look at, or how the weightage was given to each one of these parameters, and how it was arrived at. That would be an interesting fact to know for
That's a
doctors.
question, yeah. So that's the reason why I say we need to wait a little while. So this was not tried out on any, population sample or etc. It was only the expertise of our group that we thought that was importance. And it's a very simple score. It just says -1, 0, or 1. So we didn't want to make it complicated, and we didn't want to. This score is only for you. You don't compare your score to another person. It just tells you whether you're heading in the right direction or the wrong direction. And we are given equal importance to all the parameters, the 9 keys. That's the structure of the score. So you cannot say your score is that much, my score. We don't compare it like that. You're in the right direction or in the wrong direction. It helps you to monitor what you are doing. So it has not been tested on any population sample or anything like that. But we do have plans once it rolls out and we see how it is. And we can always modify the score based on inputs. But this is the basis point. Very simple. -0, 1 for your own parameter. What we think is the most important thing. It's not 100%, but what we think is 98% will cover 98% of what is important for your health.
One last question, sir. I mean, as part of the code book, are there any advice to people as to how to avoid misinformation? Do you actually make recommendations as to how to avoid misinformation or use disinformation that is widely available in social media, that is stuff? Any warning note or any guidance to people has been given in that kind of regard? Perhaps probably the greatest evil of our times is misinformation. I think that probably the code book will be incomplete without such a benefit.
Yes, but it's difficult to pinpoint somebody to say that, so a lot of things like scaremongering, for example, commercial interest, for example, all that is hidden into that. So to dissect out what is really what is good and bad is very difficult. That's what we find, and contradictory advice as well. But as I said, this gives you a basis of what good information is about health. So, for example, on fasting, Selvi talked about that. But there are 100 more things about fasting. So you build on this. This is a consensus statement which is across many doctors, many specialists, many things. This is a starting point. And then once you get a core knowledge, then it's very easy for everyone to find what is information, what is disinformation, what is the person trying to convey, if there's a commercial bias in it. All that becomes very apparent. But unless you have this core knowledge, then that's where we stumble. So we believe that this gives the core knowledge, but we haven't named anybody or any channel saying that's how you identify misinformation. Not like that. We've not done anything like that.
Excellent initiative, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Bose, Rahul Mishra has asked a question. If possible, can you throw some light on genetic remodeling for diseases with universal health code? I know it's kind of a googly, but I thought he took the time to write it. So, yeah.
So we strictly wanted to stay away from diseases. Yeah. So we didn't want people to self-treat by using the universal health code. That's not for what it's meant for. So if you have, as I said, if you have any disease, you need to go to your doctor. Doctors are fantastic experts in diseases. Unfortunately, we are not taught any health in medical school, and that's why we are as novices in health as anybody else. And that's where the problem lies. So it's only on health and how you can get healthy. And when you have disease, whatever disease that you may have, you need to go to the specialist and get that. So I specifically don't want to talk about disease in this forum.
See, can I just add to that also? So, in genetic inherited abnormality, especially in context with breast cancer, the commonest mutation that we see is BRCA1 and 2. It's like a loaded gun. The trigger is still lifestyle, and so a lot of things you can still
Yes, we can't hear you well, Selvi. But what Selvi is saying is that what about the genetic component to many diseases? Yes, of course there is. There's a genetic component to lifestyle disease as well. Hypertension, diabetes, whatever you take, liver disease, a genetic component. But at the end of the day, if you have a genetic disadvantage, the more must you be industrious in maximizing the lifestyle inputs to negate that disadvantage that you have. You shouldn't have a defeatist approach and saying, oh, I'm genetically disadvantaged, so I'm just going to give up. You have to be more industrious in adopting all his lifestyle as we call epigenetics. So what genes are turned on and turned off depending on your behavior. That we know that epigenetics. So how to influence your epigenetics all given in the book. So what genes to turn on or what's in your hands basically. The USC is a tool that what's in your hands. Genetics is not in your hands. So that is a thing. But what's in your hands is what you can turn and turn off by epigenetics. And that's what the US tells you how to do that.
I think Rahul's question is
asked on motivation. So you have any tips on motivation, how to stay motivated on the journey?
Motivated. Well, not specifically. I think each one has their own this thing. It's a question of so like I said, first thing is coming to this topic, we first haven't defined health at all these years. So we all said different things as health, MSc, getting a good score in MSc was we considered health. But now that we have defined it, and once the knowledge is it's a very addictive thing, And once we get good at managing a machine, which is our body, it's so addictive. It is like, you own a motorbike, and people can see that, people are interested in motorbikes. They'll be, cleaning it every day, oiling it every day, or whatever machine that they are very, that they're passionate about. And once your body becomes your passion, and then everything is there's no short of motivation.
That's a wonderful tip.
Vivo V22413, you have your hand up. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Venkat. I am a friend of Dr. Pradeep. This is not a question, but this is more of a gratitude statement that I'd like to make. Dr. Vijay Bose and all the other experts on the call. I'm a non-medical, professional. I work in the IT industry, but this has been a very enriching experience. And I'm one of those friends that Dr. Pradeep, talked about when he was asking a question. And I really appreciate all the knowledge that you guys are sharing. And I hope to join future sessions to learn more. Thank you.
Pradeep, you have your hand up again. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. I wanted to ask the panel about the easy fixes now people are taking that like the Ozempic or the Mounjaro, such stuff. Any comments on that?
Yes, we have covered the topic in the book as well. So all like this, topics that are commonly asked topics are covered. So Mounjaro, as we had I think a separate session on that, if I'm not mistaken, Vidyan thing. So basically, losing weight is not getting healthy. So people who don't know, so we don't want to lose muscle. So if your Mounjaro and the other GLP-1 peptides are going to just delay gastric emptying, and thereby not going to feel hungry, not going to eat. And that is like what Selvi said. that is like starving. So if you're starving, is not good for your metabolism. You're going to, lose muscle, and it's going to have a damage. And the other thing that we covered in the universal code is that the drugs, which we have is what you call a drug dogma. So every drug has got a side effect. There's no question about it. There's no drug that does not have side effects. So in medicine, when the patient has got a disease, we learn how to use it. The advantages are more than disadvantages, antibiotics, whatever we're going to use. So we use it. But when we use on healthy people, you got to be extra careful, whatever drug that you're going to use, because it's going to have side effects. There's no question about that. However, when people are metabolically, when obese patients, so I use a lot of Ozempic myself on my patients, Monjaro, when they are very obese, and when somebody has got a voracious eating appetite, they say, I eat like, or the family says, this guy, you have to see, you won't believe how much he's eating. Then it works like magic for them. So it's like any other drug. The advantages or more than the disadvantages, we can certainly use it. But if is it a magic molecule for all of us? No, certainly not. There's going to be no magic molecule applicable to all of us. That's just not going to come forever. People keep telling us, and that's the reason why a lot of people don't take effort. They think that one magic molecule will come and then that will promise us all health. That's never going to come. So it's not for all of us, but for selective indications, it works very, very well.
Dr. May, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Vidya. I'm one of the batch members from the 1984. Just to clarify on some of the questions asked about how to stay focused on your health, maintaining those parameters. Unless you are with a group, like-minded group, it's not going to work. And the interesting part is you will repeatedly see, if you're in a family with everyone being obese, you will see eventually you will get obese even if you're thin. And this is the psychology bit, because you see them eating subconsciously, you tend to put the food in your mouth. And likewise, if you are seeing families who are sports-minded and staying fit, and you will see a person entering that family as some kind of foster child or someone, will eventually go into it and adopt those methods. So in order to, help or enable, there is a universal health code group formed by Vijay again and Dhiren. And this is about covering older people throughout India, both south and north of India. So if you go into this group, you will see this like-minded people. And that's the best way to keep focused and keep implementing whatever techniques you've adopted.
Thank you, Dr. May. We are almost out of time. Radhakrishna, would you like to come in now? Moderators, if you find some important question in the chat box, please feel free to address it. I had a run through. I didn't find anything which we have not addressed.
I think a few questions asked where it's available. I think it's been answered, but for those who have not seen the chat box, it's available in Amazon, and Kindle version is also available.
Yeah, at the outset, kudos to Vijay Bose for a wonderful book of this nature. Having known him for more than a decade, and he's a celebrity in his own specialty, one of the top-notch surgeons in his field, but he's become a celebrity in health sector, sort of messiah. And this is a very unusual, this is lateral thinking, I should say, because I know orthopedicians for a long time who generally stick to their specialty and don't try to think otherwise. And the biggest the credit that should be given to Vijay Bose is he shared his whatever popularity with so many of his classmates, and that's very, very commendable. Many don't do a thing of that nature. Having said that, now by 2050, I understand the 80 plus population in India is going to increase by 300%. In other words, a lot of us, may reach that figure. And, this UHC will be a great help to our 50 plus age group. But I wonder, whether this can be applicable to school children or pediatric population, or at what juncture these principles can be made use of, and how can they be made use of? Question one, Bose.
Yeah, I think these principles apply to children as well. Not very young children. I'm not very familiar with pediatrics, but very, adolescents and all that, the same principles certainly do apply. And you talked about this longevity. So we very clearly emphasize, we need to distinguish longevity from what is the other one called, the health span and the longevity. Yeah. So we want to only increase the health span. So the idea is that, like in the blue zones of the world, the idea is you have to be healthy till the day you die. There's no point, getting sick or infirm at 60 and then you live till 80. That doesn't serve you or your family or your society at all. You become a burden for them. So the idea is you need to increase your health span, and then you're healthy till you die, and that's the goal or the motto.
Yeah. Secondly, to Venkatesh was suggesting on how this can reach the rural population who don't understand the science. Actually, it's a very intensely written book. You should have some medical knowledge for a general population. Not that, in spite of the fact that you try to translate and make things simpler. The one. Now, do you have social media handles like Insta or Facebook where you get a regular small posts which will, turn you towards UHC and try to understand what is it? And you plan to make some sort of cartoons for children or some sort of comic books? And is that in the pipeline?
Yeah, certainly on the pipeline. So we don't have any Insta and the presence now, but the first thing was to getting the code ready, which was a very tough task. But now that we got the code ready and it's out, then all these things. So a lot of people have suggested that we need to get the Insta going and so many other things. We got other plans also, which would reach a much larger audience. So we have just started working on that only the last couple of weeks. Once we got everything in place.
So you culled your code book from literature, English literature available from all over, but the Chinese have their own secrets, Japanese have their own secrets, Koreans have their own secrets. Have you delved into those individual lifestyles and secrets and got some information from that?
Yes, we have. So now that online information is available from everywhere, so local geographical factors have, as I said, genetic engineering, evolutionary engineering, our local geographic factors has played a role. And that's the reason why we believe that some native food, like whatever native food that are used to, is more healthy for you than from a different diet. And that's why when Indians go and settle down in the US, they are the most unhealthy population there, because that's not the native diet. So that again, we now believe 10,000 years is enough to code your genes, to significantly modify your genes. So if you have 10,000 years, you got that. So local factors are important. So based on that, local, Japanese living close to the sea, for example, all that has imprinted into their own genetic makeup, and that we have to recognize. The human body, the code says, is perfect in every way. We thought, the acid was bad, the bacteria in the stomach was bad, the bacteria in the mouth was bad, and the bacteria around us was bad. We used to use all kinds of antiseptic in our homes to keep everything bacteria free. Now we know that we need to have a very sort of a harmonious relationship with microbes around us. There's so many microbes living around inside as well. So these local geographical factors are very important, and that has been emphasized in the code.
A great effort altogether, and kudos, and I hope the message will spread to general population, go to colleges and schools, and people try to decipher the secrets of this code. And a word about fasting. The best way to start fasting in your home is you fire your chef and close your kitchen.
Start cooking yourself so you don't like your own taste.
To just add to what Bose said about local food, everyone gets very excited about blueberries. They contain anthocyanin, they contain antioxidants, but we have our own jamun fruit, our nagaparam, which is a local food which we are used to, which also is rich in anthocyanin and contains lots of antioxidants. So that's why the importance of local foods is brought in so clearly in the book. We probably digest them a lot better, our local foods, than the imported blueberries.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. As usual, you put Dr. Bose's name on the poster, and you have at least 100+ people logging in and staying for an hour and a half. Thank you, team MMC 84, for letting us be one of the first to highlight the contents of your book. We hope it is read and adapted worldwide, and maybe 5 years from now, we should come back and see how each one of us has adopted it and what benefit we got from it. We'll meet again next week with another episode of Marvelous Medicine. Till then, take care and stay safe. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya, for giving us this opportunity. It was really
Thank you.
we
Thank
enjoyed
you.
the time.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Azim.
much.
Freaks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A
Thank
pleasure
you.
indeed. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.